The Walking Dead Season 2. Still arguably my favorite season of The Walking Dead. Welcome everyone into my rewatch review of The Walking Dead. Now, I've been a Walking Dead fan my whole life. I'm going to go in the spiel real quick. And I've watched every episode at least once, some 2-3 times. So I'm rewatching the series because I do love it. Also, I'm trying to find little small details that connect to the story later, or just minute things that I find cool. So without further ado, let's get into The Walking Dead Season 2 rewatch review. So The Walking Dead Season 2 picks up right where Season 1 leaves off. It's right when the CDC blows up and our people are back on the road. And pretty much no time at all, we end up on the highway. Now, this is a big plot point in Season 2. That's kind of why I'm talking about it. In my previous video, I didn't really hit on all the plot points or whatever. I'm more to talk about characters and atmosphere. We'll get to that, but this is a huge part of Season 2 where they get stranded on the highway. And obviously, that's when Sophia leaves. And that's what kind of sparks the whole thing, how they kind of end up being at Herschel's and why Carl ends up getting shot by Otis because they're out looking for Sophia and so forth. So Sophia getting lost was a huge plot point for all of Season 2. It set up practically everything that happened in Season 2. So quickly looking at my notes, before they got on the road, when Rick's kind of doing the voiceover of them loading up, getting into different vehicles, and they're talking about this hard journey they're going to be on. They're about to travel to Fort Benning. Rick, when he's talking on his walkie, he's like kind of knelt down on top of a roof. You can see the hospital that Beth gets trapped into in Season 5. Yeah, it really is the same hospital. Now, obviously, we don't know if like Dawn, I believe that's her name, and her police people are there, but it is actually the hospital that Beth dies in. So, nice little Easter egg there. And I'm sure a lot of people have caught this, but Daryl's original bike, which is actually Merle's, does have an SS on the tank of the bike. It's, for Nazis or whatever. It actually has the SS sign on there, and I thought that was interesting because it's always hinted at that Merle is like a white supremacist, or he was, he's one of those people. But I thought that was an interesting little touch. I know people have seen it and people have talked about it, but that's just another detail that I picked up on the rewatch. And also, Season 2, Episode 1 is the first time when we see Daryl's vest. Now, I thought that was a cool little thing because I couldn't remember exactly when he first puts it on, because in Season 2, he doesn't wear it all the time like he does in later seasons. He only wears it only when he's on his bike and also when it starts getting cold near the end of the season. So I really didn't know how long he wore or what was his first episode. So Season 2, Episode 1 is his first episode in his vest. Also, the premiere of Season 2 is kind of the beginning of the end of the weird physics with the zombies. The zombies actually bent down and try to get Sophia. Now we see that one other time when Shane and Andrea are in the suburbs looking for Sophia. We see another zombie kind of bend down underneath the garage door. And I believe that is the last time we see a zombie kind of have more of a better knowledge of their body, the best way to explain it. Because after that, zombies kind of get really how they are today. They're a lot more mindless. They're not able to be very dexterous and be able to bend down and like crawl. And I'm glad that they went into the other direction of where they are now, because I don't know, it feels different. It's just kind of funny how it took them pretty much almost 2 seasons to kind of get where they wanted to go with the walkers. And I thought it was interesting after Carl is shot and Carl wakes up in Episode 4, he's still bedridden, and that is when Rick gives him his hat. Obviously, we always knew that Rick gave Carl his hat, but I couldn't remember what episode it is in. It's in Episode 4, and that is also the same episode when Rick puts away his sheriff badges. And that is pretty much the symbolism of Officer Friendly dying. Like, he's putting it away, and he's going to be a new person. Like, Rick is different now, moving forward. And obviously, he is. He wants to do the right thing still throughout Season 2, but he's got to do what he's got to do. Also, super interesting in the episode Nebraska. Okay, that's the episode when Rick kills Tony and Dave in the bar. They kind of hint at Alexandria. When you listen closely and you got to listen again, they talk about a safe zone in D.C. that they tried to get to, but they couldn't because it was overran or whatever, or the surrounding areas were overran. They couldn't get to it. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg that Alexandria is out there. I thought that was kind of cool. It's one sentence you have to catch, but I thought it was really cool that they kind of threw that in there, because I believe when Season 2 was out back in 2011, I believe that was kind of the point in the comic book, somewhere around there when they showed up to Alexandria. So I'm sure they kind of knew what direction they wanted to go into, obviously, but it still was kind of cool to hear that Easter egg in the show in Season 2. All right, kind of getting into some of the character development that I found interesting in this season. So obviously we know all the characters at this point. You know, we have Rick, Shane, Daryl, Carol, Lori, Carl, Herschel, Maggie, Beth, so on and so forth, T-Dog, Glenn, Andrea. There's more characters, but you get the point. Dale. Like I said, this is a review for things that I kind of catch on the second rewatch. Not the obvious things like, you know, Rick kills the two guys in the bar and Shane dies and so forth. These are just little details that I find super interesting as a super fan, and I'm sure you do too. It maybe things that you didn't even know about. So that's what I'm trying to bring to light. This isn't like a true, this is what happened in episode 3. This is what happened in episode 6. That's boring. You already know what happens at this point, especially if you're watching this video. This is more of a Easter egg detail video. So some things that really caught my eye is that Lori keeps throwing this into Shane's face. She keeps saying, you know, that Rick wasn't dead and Shane left him pretty much. Like, she throws this in his face like 4 or 5 different times. And it's like, geez, lady, the guy did try to save his best friend. And it was either him or Shane. And there's no way a guy that's comatose could make it in that world, or in any world, really. I mean, he has no functionality, and the computers were all on the fritz and everything at that time. And it just, oh my gosh, Lori is so annoying. But she just kept throwing that in his face and throwing it in his face. And I'm like, I feel bad for the poor guy sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I do feel bad for Shane in season 2. To me, I know people always want to paint Shane as a villain and as a bad guy. To me, his character is a tragic character. He's always had the best intentions until he's forced to pretty much be the villain in a way. And he's just a character of tragedy. And, you know, he kind of went crazy. And I blame more Lori than anything else. And I don't think Shane ever forgave himself for leaving Rick. And obviously he wants Carl and Lori, you know, to be his little weird family and so forth. But him killing Otis, I don't think he cared at all. But I think just the guilt of leaving Rick, and then Lori just kind of kept throwing it at him and throwing at him and throwing it at him. And then at the very end, she goes and thanks him. And I think that just set him off. And that's when he went crazy and tried to kill Rick. And wrong or not, I still blame Lori why Shane is dead. I think if Lori would just left him be, I don't think Shane would have did what he did and tried to kill Rick after, you know, he killed Randall and whatnot. But I blame Lori. It's Lori's fault. It's always her fault. Always felt that way. Because if you go back to 18 miles out, obviously Rick and Shane kind of have it out. They beat the hell out of each other and whatnot. And Rick gives the whole speech, you know, like, that's my son, that's my unborn baby, that's my wife, you know, and he's like, I'll stay alive to keep them alive, which is just, it's a heartbreaking quote now with Carl being dead and Lori being gone. I know Judith is still kicking, but still, it's still a real sad quote. But I think Shane would have accepted his fate, going back kind of what I was saying, after Rick saved him in 18 miles out. I think Shane would have just been like, fine, I'll fall in the line. You saved my ass, like, cool. I'll fall in a line. I'll just shut up. I'll just kind of be on the outskirts, kind of be Daryl. You know, how Daryl just kind of doesn't like living with anyone. He kind of just lives on the outskirts, kind of always the fringe man of the group. I think Shane kind of would have done that. He would have accepted it, and they probably would have been able to coexist. But Lori just had to go do that. She had to go, oh, thank you, Shane. Thank you, Shane. And it just nutted him up, and, well, you know what happens. Rewatching it, I think it would have been pretty cool to see Carl kill Randall. Now, in the comic books, if you read the comics, there's 2 boys that are exactly pretty much the same character as Lizzie and Mika from the show. They're like around the same age, and one of the boys kills the other boy, and they're out on the road. So the whole group doesn't know what to do with the one boy that killed his brother. So they're like, I don't know what to do. You know, they don't really want to kill the kid because, you know, obviously that's a whole issue in itself. So Carl just sneaks into I think they're keeping him like in a van or something at night, and just goes in there and just shoots him. Just ends it all. Just ends it. No one has to worry about it. No one ever really figures it out. And I think Carl tells Rick down the line that he did that. But still, I think it would have been kind of cool. It really would have made Carl a little bit more of a badass. It kind of would have developed his character into comic Carl a little bit more if he just went in there one night and just ended Randall. That way no one else had to worry about it. Now, it may have caused conflict within the group because no one would have admitted to it because it was Carl's fault and Carl wouldn't have said anything. There would have had issues there, but that issue of Randall would have been gone, and I think everyone would have just accepted it, that it just happened, and just would have moved on, and Carl would have shouldered that burden, and he would have just lived on with it just fine. That's why I love comic Carl so much, because he just does what has to be done. He's a lot like Rick. He just gets it done, and that's just, it is what it is. There's nothing to say about it. So we all know how much I don't like Dale, but there's this hilarious scene when Dale is going off and asking everyone to, you know, side with him to keep Randall alive and so forth. When he goes up to Shane, Shane, of course, doesn't want anything to party. He wants Randall dead. That's when Dale, he's like, confronts Shane, and he's like, well, I'm not going anywhere, and you're not going anywhere. We got to figure this out, or whatever he said. But that's really hilarious because Dale dies at that end of the episode, and Shane dies in the next episode. Talk about some either foreshadowing or some just great irony, because both of them died within an episode of each other. I don't know, it's kind of funny. I thought that was kind of good. We get to see Rick's first kind of mental breakdown when he kills Shane, and rightfully so. I mean, could you imagine killing someone, let alone your best friend, like that after he tries to kill you? You kind of see his first Rick mental breakdown, and it's great. One of the best scenes of The Walking Dead history still to this day. The whole Shane and Rick confrontation at the end there, and Rick ends up killing him. It's great. It just tugs on your heartstrings, and it's just great. It's so awesome. But I love seeing that Rick, just like, no. He's just like, you did this, Shane. You did this to us. Like all that. It's great. But you see his first kind of mental break, and that just kind of starts the dictatorship of Rick, aka the Ricktatorship, and everything that kind of drives Rick going forward. Also, when the farm started falling, Andrea went out to save Carol because Carol kind of got trapped by the house. And Andrea goes over there and saves Carol. Andrea shoots the zombie in the head, and the zombie falls on her. She's fine. Okay, at least at that time. And Andrea gets up, and Carol totally ditches her, just runs away. I'm like, that's horrible. Because at this point, it's not calculated cool Carol. This is just Carol just running away, and I'm just like, damn, just ditched Andrea like that? That's so messed up. I also hate how Andrea was left behind. That bothers me so much. Granted, I know in the show that's how we ended up getting Michonne, because she befriended Andrea after she saved her, but they could have written in Michonne through another way, and we would have had Andrea in the group, because I really liked Andrea. I know everyone just likes to just crap over her character, which, fine, you have your opinions, but I really liked Andrea, at least in the back half of season 2. Super cool character. Then in season 3, she kind of gets kind of lame again. She likes the governor and doesn't know what to do, and humanity, and blah, 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 blah. That is annoying. But she still shouldn't have died in season 3. But we'll touch on that in another video. Also, another thing that I picked up that was pretty kind of interesting, when after Rick tells everyone that they're infected and he kind of goes off and Lori goes over there, kind of give him a hug or whatever. That's when, Rick tells her, I killed him. I just wanted it done, talking about Shane. And she kind of like blows him off, and she's like, gives him like that death stare, and Rick kind of goes to like touch her shoulder, and she gives like that, don't touch me look. I always kind of thought it, but seeing it again, it kind of reassured to me that I think Lori still really loved Shane, and she didn't want to be with Rick, because if you have to remember, they had marital issues before the apocalypse happened, and I think this only brought it on even more, with the stress and everything. And she did love Shane, I think, more than Rick at that point, but she just didn't know what to do. Real interesting. And, it's just one of those small little things, like facial just hatred, just one of those little small details that started the resentment between Rick and Lori that carries into season 3. And it's great. It's so great. I love how salty Rick becomes by the premiere of season 3, how much he just hates Lori, because honestly, Rick is representing the audience at that point. No one likes Lori. And the final thing that I caught in season 2 that I thought was interesting, so when they're all sitting around the fire and Rick gives this isn't a democracy speech anymore, you have Carol kind of complaining about Rick. He's like, do something. And then she kind of looks over at Daryl, and Daryl's like, what do you want? And then she's like, I just want someone with honor. That's when Daryl stands up for Rick, and he's like, he has honor. He's all right by me. He's pretty much been doing the right thing this whole time. One of those deals. It just was cool to kind of see Daryl stand up for Rick after them not really liking each other in the very beginning in season 1 to at this point. They're not quite brothers yet. They're very much mutual friends and benefactors of one another. They can survive with each other. Like, they like each other enough to do that. And it's just cool to see Daryl stand up for Rick, and, how that whole relationship progresses over the next few seasons. They become brothers. I mean, that's real cool. So overall, The Walking Dead season 2 still holds up to this day. It is still probably my favorite season because it feels so grounded, just like season 1. It feels like something that could still happen to this day. Now, I know there's zombies and it's fictional and stuff, but the survival aspects and everything like that still just feels so grounded and realistic, and I love it because at this point in the show, they still talk about, needing food and medicine and weapons and how much ammo they have. They even talk about how much ammo they have. They hit on that. and just various things where like nowadays, at least in the show, they don't really have guns now, season 9, I know, but say like season 8, they just had a plethora of weapons and unlimited ammo, which, whatever. They should have at least thrown in these small details saying, we have 100 rounds of ammo. This is all we have, like in the later seasons where they do in the first few seasons, because it adds to the realism and the depth of the show, where I feel like it kind of slides in 7 and 8. We don't get that all that much in season 7 and 8. But back in season 2, it is still so great, such a great show. And it's crazy how much the vibe and atmosphere change after the first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead. Because entering season 3, the show does feel a lot different than it did in season 1 and season 2. It's not a bad thing that it changes because the show does have to evolve, but it is weird how much it actually does change. You feel it. The world gets more overgrown, and it feels less like they're normal people surviving in this. They feel more hardened and more adapt to the world, because they are. But you truly feel that. You really do. From seasons 2 to 3, especially the first 2 seasons to 3, the show changes a lot. And it has to change. People evolve, the story evolves, and so forth. But it is crazy how much it does change. You truly feel it. All right, everyone, I got to get out of here. This video is running long enough. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to comment down below. How do you feel about The Walking Dead Season 2? Did you pick up on any of these details when you watched The Walking Dead Season 2? I want to know. While you're down there, if you can like the video and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone have a great day.